Welcome into the wire. It's Jason Draven, thatFFnerd, everywhere you can find me. Joined, especially luckily today, by Mike Burland here. Mike, just give us a little rundown of what you do, and I'm so thankful that you joined me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here, talk some waiver wire stuff, and going into week 5. But yeah, for the website Important Nonsense, I focus on the redraft, specifically the trade articles. So you'll see the tricks of the trade articles that come out, some buy lows, sell highs, maybe some specific scenarios to target in your leagues that you can look for to kind of improve your team, because you have the waiver wire and you have trades, and that's kind of all you have when you're in the middle of the season. So
Yeah, and it's definitely what's needed. I get trade questions all day, every day, and it's super annoying, but because it's so hard to, without knowing entire team, what your setup is, what kind of format you're in. So
record.
Yeah, great bits of information to get from Mike for sure. But we're starting off. A lot of injuries have happened. It's really frustrating. So we're trying to help you get through week 5 waiver wire. And we'll start off where we always do, with the quarterback. So, of course, it's, again, the same people I've been listing week in and week out. Jared Goff is one of my favorites every week. This team is putting up 35 points. That's their average on the year. It's blowing me away. I don't understand why. It's just so frustrating. But again, he's still available. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's kind of in that situation that I like to call the fantasy gold mine of just I think they're the number one scoring offense. I think they're the head of the Chiefs now, and they also have they have a terrible defense. So it's like they just have to throw all the time. The coach goes for it on 4th down all the time, so that they're not afraid to throw it. I mean, he put up a huge week without St. Brown, Swift, and Shark. All of them out. So it was against Seattle, but yeah, I don't know why either. Why people? Maybe it's a Detroit Lions thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I get that a little bit, but again, Lions are. Yeah, see, they put up 35 points, but also give up 35.3 fantasy points, or I guess real points, not fantasy points, but that's just bananas either way. After that, it's another one based on matchup, and somebody else you should be looking at in Jacoby Brissett, 1.5% rostered, very widely available, but in that same vein, Deshaun Watson is coming back soon. So right about now is when you're kind of looking to pick that up as another option. Currently the 17th best quarterback in fantasy, which it's so. But again, it's just one of those things. It's hard when you have Jared Goff already there, who's the 5th best quarterback in fantasy football right now. Yeah. So outside of that, we're kind of looking at the ones that are more widely available based on matchups that I kind of like. Ryan Tannehill is one of the names. He's put up some solid numbers going up against the Commanders this week. They allowed 24.5 fantasy points. I mean, it's one of those things that you just kind of have to look at and really enjoy. And if you're looking for somebody who's so widely available, because it's probably going to be another option in Bailey Zappi. And I'm throwing it out there because, again, we just talked about the Lions, ranked last against the quarterback, 28.5 fantasy points. I mean, could do worse, especially with Mac Jones. I would expect him not to be out this week, or to be out this week. So it'll be interesting for sure. Do you have any names that you kind of want to look at, or any of those that you really enjoy?
Yeah. I mean, Goff is by far number one. I like Tannehill. There is that rushing floor. He's not really running too much this year, but he's had the rushing floor a little bit the last couple years. And then Teddy Bridgewater. I think they did announce that Tua is going to miss this week's game. So that's an option where we're going to see him kind of in a new offense, and probably with the best skill position players he's ever had. And, he had 200 yards and a touchdown in about 2.5 quarters, just a little over half a game on that Thursday night game. So it's a possibility. They have a really, really nice schedule. They play the Jets this coming week. So if you kind of need someone in a pinch this week for whatever reason, that's maybe an option too, if those other guys, especially Goff, is not there.
Yeah, and it's one of the names I keep seeing on a lot of other people's potential pickups for waiver wires, and it's Carson Wentz. I don't understand why people are so high on him. The dude's a turnover machine. They have Jahan Dotson also out, and the other one that I'm expecting to hear a lot about is Kenny Pickett. And for me, I'm out on both of them, and I'm just kind of curious. Are you on that same page? Are you completely looking at them for a potential streamer?
No, not in a one quarterback league. I just can't. That offensive line's terrible. The Steelers' schedule is brutal coming up. They got the Bills. I forget exactly. They have a string of 3 or 4 games where it's just really, really, really tough. Bills, Buccaneers, Dolphins, Eagles, Saints, Bengals. Like they just have a kind of a murderer's row of teams they have to play. So I'm out on Pickett. Kind of a wait and see. If he shows something maybe this week, then maybe you can grab him. But as of now, no, I'm not going to pick him up.
Yeah, and I'm with you 100% because I just, unless it's a super flex, even then you're kind of just hoping that there's something else out there. You should already have a third quarterback on your bench. It's just ready to go.
Yeah.
But then we'll move into running backs. Get off of that because there are big injuries here. We just lost Javonte Williams. Oh, hey, there we go. Sadly, had Javonte Williams as my RB2. Now that he is out of commission, should I get Mostert or Jamal Williams as the 4th-string running back? I mean, the first 3 are pretty solid. I like CMC and Robinson. They're doing great work. Thanks a lot here, Soaring Eagle. Should I get Mostert? I'm more on the Williams train here. Especially with the fact that they don't have Tua. Mostert has been seeing a lot of work, but I'm going more so with Jamal Williams there. But what do you think?
I agree. I'd go Jamal Williams. You're going to have him. I assume Swift's going to miss probably this week and maybe up. I think they have a week 6 bye. So maybe they push it to the bye and just, take these next 2 weeks off. And then even when Swift's back, he has standalone value. He's been scoring touchdowns, kind of touchdown dependent, but on the number 1 scoring offense, not a terrible option for bye weeks or a spot start. So, and then there's always that. You saw what he did without Swift. So I'm definitely going Jamal Williams here. Mostert, the Dolphins just aren't using their running backs. I know you had, I think, like 15 carries last week, which is nice to see, but they're a pass first team and they're going to be getting it to the receivers. So
yeah. And I mean, when you have Hill and Waddle and a lot of great pass catchers like that, it's pretty easy to get away from the run. So but like we're saying, we're getting into running backs. I mean, the basics are going to be covered because of the fact that if Melvin Gordon's out there, you should get him first for sure.
Yes.
But if he's not, we're looking at the guy who's even more widely available because guess what? He's going to have value in Mike Boone. 0.1% rostered in ESPN. Like we said, Williams had that season-ending ACL injury. Makes me nervous. I mean, we're hoping the best for him for sure. But and in the short time that Boone was available, he got some solid work. And Gordon is kind of older. I hate to say that, but he is a more veteran running back, and they tend to break down. I mean, you're seeing what is happening with like Cordero Patterson's another name that we're going to bring up, but and with that, I guess I'll go straight into the other guy I'm looking at is Tyler Algier. I mean, he's put on IR this week. That's at least 3 weeks a year without him, and Algier saw a massive tick up in his carries. I mean, and he's just been a solid option for you all week. So
the one thing I will say about Algier is that week 1, a very small sample size, but Damian Williams was the starter before he got hurt in that week 1 game, and then Patterson had his big game. So I think Damian Williams is out at least 1 more week, and then he's eligible to come back. So there's that, curveball maybe.
Well, and they also have been using Huntley a little bit too, which I noticed in the last game. But
I'd go Algier though, not a ball.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty solid one. But the one that I think everybody is going to be really focused on outside of those is going to be J.D. McKissick. I mean. Still available, very critical to that offense. It's a really bad offense, which is part of the reason they have so much issues with like Gibson. My best is 60-40 with Gordon, with 40 going to Boone. Yeah. And I mean, that's exactly what you're kind of looking at. He's going to be an easy flex option. If you happen to lose one of those big names, that's somebody you're looking at for sure.
Definitely. He definitely deserves to be on a roster, kind of a just in case, see what happens this week kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, because of how they're using it, McKissick saw another uptick this week, and that's part of the reason I like him. He keeps seeing more and more snaps because they aren't trusting Antonio Gibson, and Brian Robinson is coming back. Somebody else who's widely available. If you haven't picked him up, you probably should. And currently the RB34 in fantasy. So Also, all things that you're looking for. Are there any names that I kind of missed that you're interested in?
Yeah, I would just say, we've seen these big name running backs going down with injuries. We've seen what Jamal Williams and Khalil Herbert have been able to do with, the starters on the team going down. So, if you do have a roster spot, maybe guys like Rachaad White, he's kind of getting more involved with the Buccaneers. And if something does happen to Fournette, who does have a little bit of an injury history, but if something happens to him, it seems like it's going to be Rachaad White getting the bulk of the carries on a good offense. I believe. Yeah,
and we saw him get a lot of use this week, but I think again that was just because of the fact that they had to run so many plays to keep up with the Chiefs. So I'm kind of curious to see how that ends up really evolving over the season.
Yeah. I just think his value, again, if you have the spot, kind of, it's his value of if Fournette does go down, he could be kind of a league winner that can carry your team a bit, hopefully, depending on the usage. And then two other guys, Madison, I'm not sure if he kind of meets the criteria here.
I mean, he's fine. I'm assuming that a lot of people who have Cook, especially this week, got nervous and picked up Madison. So, again, somebody you're definitely looking at for sure. But outside of that, is there anybody else you're kind of interested in?
Yeah, and just Isaiah Pacheco kind of falling in that Rachaad White, Madison kind of that same build of just if something happens to Clyde, Pacheco seems like he's going to be the guy. He looks good as well. So on a good offense, there's something to keep in mind with, the amount of injuries that happen to running backs.
Well, and somebody else who's trending up in snap share, saw a massive increase this year or this past week, and McKinnon actually saw less, which is kind of surprising. I think Pacheco's going to end up being pretty involved, but as a long-term ad, I really like that. I think another one we're going to see a lot of, or I'll hear a lot about, is Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. And honestly, if it's me, I'm not willing to risk it with either of them. I mean, Hill got injured again. Gus Edwards is coming off an injury. I'd rather, if you have Dobbins, that's all you really want on that team at this point.
Yeah,
and I wasn't sure if you had a disagreement on that one, but I figured I'd at least put it out there.
I mean, I like for redraft, it's tough. We haven't really seen a Ravens running back do that well. We saw Dobbins do well last week, but consistently we haven't seen a Ravens running back do well since 2020. So it seems to be Lamar and then hopefully Dobbins. And then behind that, you're just kind of playing the injury game, most likely.
Yeah, and even Dobbins, I'm scared of for sure. But it's just one of those things. He played well, so you might as well just keep rolling with it and hope for the best. Probably a flex position more for me than an actual RB2. But all right, we'll get off of that. We'll go into wide receivers, everybody's favorite position because it's such a pain.
Much more exciting than the running backs this week, I think.
Are we feeling good enough with the Broncos offense to confidently start Court, at least at flex for the rest of you? I'm assuming that's Courtland Sutton.
Yeah.
And I mean, Sutton is clearly the number one target for Wilson, is getting used all over the field and is surprisingly doing very well with the targets he's receiving for sure.
I think he's in PPR leagues. I think he's like a top 12 or 15 receiver. So I think he's even more than just a flex, So I think you should feel okay. If Sutton's your flex, I think you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, you have a stack team. We get it, Soaring Eagle. You keep flexing on us. We're taking it every week. It's fine. But again, we'll talk about my favorite receivers because it's a team that has no receivers currently, and it's Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm telling you, I prefer Robinson here just because he is more widely available. Toney has a bunch of upside for sure, but with Shepard being out, I think Robinson fills that slot role a lot better. Toney just has the talent and has an additional year, kind of, I guess, a few games. Again, somebody who deals with injury constantly. But and Kenny Galladay also has another injury. Talk about this. This team is just brutal to watch.
No receiver or no one had more than 25 receiving yards. I know they had quarterback issues with Jones going out and Tyrod Taylor going out, but it's one of those two. I feel confident saying one of those two they're going to be relevant this year. Now it's just who's it going to be. I like Toney a little more talent-wise, but Wan'Dale is this coaching staff's that's the guy they took, right? And Kadarius Toney has had maybe some issues with the coaching and not playing and not starting. I don't know if it's injury related or more about his behavior or whatever it is. Not going to speculate, but so yeah, in that case, maybe Wandale is a little bit of a safer bet. But yeah, I do think one of them, they're going to be relevant and kind of replace that Shepard production for the Giants.
Yeah, but again, you're probably looking. This is a longer term ad for sure. You could probably wait another week to get either of these players because I'm pretty sure they're going to be out again this week with injury.
Yeah,
but everybody's favorite popping up again. Romeo Doubs found the end zone to save his day for sure this past week after having a massive week last week. But it's just one of those things. He's going to be a favorite, and if he continues to catch the eye of Aaron Rodgers, that's somebody that you're going to want on your team.
Yep. That's all that really matters is, does Aaron Rodgers like him, and it seems like it. I was a little surprised.
Lazard's the one, though, right? That's clearly the one for him is Alan Lazard. That dude saw so many targets.
Yeah, I agree. I do think Dobbs is a more talented player, but I was a little surprised to see Dobbs under the 50% rostered. I thought maybe he'd jump up a little bit more, but definitely after this week, he's going to be, well over that 50%.
Yeah, and I guess I could just call it a dart throw area that I'm looking at. I'm looking at Alec Pierce because, again, I brought him up on the waiver or the show on Thursday. Josh Reynolds again because I'm assuming that Amon-Ra is probably still out.
Yep.
And then Corey Davis, who, again, somehow continues to see targets and be extremely annoying for every Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson owner. So he's continuing to be a pain for everybody. So those are kind of my dart throw picks. Any of those that you like?
Yeah, I do like. I'm intrigued by the Corey Davis one because the beginning of last year, weeks 1 through 5, when Zach Wilson and Corey Davis were both on the field. I think it was the only time they were both on the field. Maybe they had one game later in the season, but Davis was like wide receiver. I think he was a top 30 receiver, which is nothing to write home about, but that's definitely flex worthy, 3 receiver leagues worthy of a roster spot, and we kind of saw it again last week. And so maybe Zach Wilson's favorite receiver is Corey Davis, whatever that means. But so I like that one definitely.
Well, I guess a better way to put it is, would you prefer one of those 3 or like Michael Gallup or Rondale Moore or a player like that is just kind of coming back, that has kind of the rapport, but you're not really sure on?
Definitely longer term, I would take a Gallup or Rondale Moore. I'm not sure what's going to happen because you got Hopkins coming back, and
and that's more my issue with that one. It's just the fact that Hopkins is going to, him and Brown are going to demand targets, and Hopkins seems to be the one that they prefer in their short area. But do you have like a couple names that you're interested in?
I have a few.
Okay.
Isaiah McKenzie, I really like. He's already 33rd in PPR leagues. He had a big week 3. He had 12 points last week before leaving with an injury. And then Jamison Crowder got hurt. So
Steve, is it wrong to say it makes sense? Zach Wilson's favorite is Corey Davis because he's the oldest wide receiver in the room.
That's pretty
great
good.
joke. Very, very solid joke. We get it, Steve. Thank you so much for the added commentary there. Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
It could be, yeah. But yeah, he's McKenzie was basically splitting that slot receiver spot with Crowder, and now Crowder is, I think, done for the year with a fractured ankle. And I know McKenzie had, I think, a concussion, so he might miss a week, but a long-term play. I really like McKenzie for more.
I mean, Important Nonsense did too. It was somebody we were interested in just because of the fact that we thought he would end up beating out Crowder, but now Crowder being injured, there hasn't been a full timeline on it, but it was said to be an ankle. And so that's definitely somebody to be interested to look at.
Yeah.
I guess a name that I didn't bring up, but maybe you should be looking at is George Pickens. But since they are moving forward with Kenny Pickett, is that somebody you're interested in? Is there any hope there?
Yeah, I'm always interested in first round rookie receivers. They always intrigue me, and we're seeing it again this year that Olave and Drake London and Garrett Wilson there for a couple weeks. They're doing well, so I'm always intrigued. I think Pickens is really good, and then small sample size, but it seemed like Pickett's favorite receiver was Pickens. He had almost over a 35% target share in that second half when Pickett took over. And then maybe there's something too. They were both backups. They got a lot of practice together, playing together, preseason training camp. So there could be something to that. So yeah, I would pick up Pickens. It's hard to say.
Yeah,
pick up
all the words,
Yeah.
Pickens, Pickens.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's just, again, somebody you want to keep an eye on. I'm not willing to do it yet. I have to get a bigger sample size. I completely understand a lot of people going for it.
Yeah.
But at the same point, Deontay Johnson seemed to fall off a cliff there. And I don't know if it's, again, like you were talking about, getting those snaps early, being the backup, kind of getting those important rapport going on.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop, I don't know what names come to my head. I wouldn't drop a lot of players for Pickens, but if you do have a spot on your roster, it's worth a spot.
Darnell Mooney?
Actually, just someone dropped Mooney last week, and I picked him up before last week just because I could afford to have him on my team. I didn't have to start him, so man, that's a tough one.
Somebody who hasn't been producing against somebody who just produced a big game.
Yeah. I'll probably take Mooney for this week and then kind of see how it goes. That's tough to say, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely just a name to kind of keep an eye on. But, hey, this is a perfect time for me to make sure you guys know shopimportantnonsense.com, because we're going into tight ends where if you go to using promo code NERD, you can get an Abolish the Tight End t-shirt. Not for me. I clearly don't support that as an option, but we'll move into the tight ends because, that's where everybody is worth it. M. Gonzalez, is Will Dissly worth an add-off waivers? Pitts has cost me games. Yeah, Pitts is definitely costing you games. And it's more, again, just based on the fact that they aren't really forcing him into it. And Marcus Mariota isn't somebody who's going to force it into any player. It's just how it's going to work out. You want a good game script where they're going to be throwing a lot. And I don't know if you watched this past week, but they ran 14 straight rushing plays.
Yeah.
And that's not something you want to see. So
they had 7 completions or 9 completions or something.
Yeah, it was brutal. So,
and they won.
I completely understand your frustration with Pitts, but you're probably still holding on to him. I don't like the Dissly as a pick this week. Are you interested in that at all, Mike?
Is there no one better than Dissly? That's kind of.
We have a couple names that we're going to throw out to kind of help you get over Dissly, but
I have Pitts in. I'm only in a few leagues, but I have Pitts in one of them or 2 of them actually, and I'm feeling the pain. But I've just decided I'm gonna live or die like Kyle Pitts this year. I'm gonna die on that hill, and because I know if I trade him and he goes off, I'm gonna feel terrible. Once I bench him, he's going to have a big game, and it's the tight end position. It's
especially when somebody like that it has so much talent and so much potential.
So much.
It's so frustrating to see. But we'll go into the tight ends, and the first is one I keep bringing up, and Tyler Conklin.
I'm surprised by this one. Yeah.
Right, 7th best tight end in fantasy.
I know, it's crazy.
Granted, that a lot of that came with Joe Flacco, so that is something to keep in mind. It's definitely infuriating, but he in the slot, that's somebody that you want, especially with CJ still dealing with all of his health issues. On that offense, you have to have a piece of it. They're going to be running so many plays. Granted, they did have a downtick this week instead of throwing 50 times like they normally have been, which is a little frustrating, but Zach Wilson did a decent job. I think he can still find Conklin and will be a solid target for him.
Yeah. I was surprised at how low the roster percentage of Conklin is. And I think before this week, he was I want to say in the top 5 or maybe even 3rd overall. And he didn't have the best week, but.
And this week he went down. Clearly, that's how that works. You drop down very quickly.
But even what he got was
for
a tight end. Yeah.
Okay it's what you're expecting. He's seeing enough targets to be somebody that you're interested in.
Yep.
So
he's only had 1 touchdown. So he's doing that without a huge. I don't like the touchdown or bust kind of guys, and he's doing it by getting 4, 5, 6 catches, and
he's seeing the target share, and that's more of something I focus on because, like you said, tight end, you're kind of touchdown dependent. So if you can see somebody who's seeing 5+ targets, it's somebody you're going to want to look at. I mean, week 1, 11.6 fantasy points. Week 2, 10 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Week 3, 16.4 fantasy points.
Yeah.
That's somebody that you're looking at. I mean, it's
yeah.
5 targets. But still, that is 5 targets. That's something that you still want. Because if he gets 3 and goes for 24 yards, granted, it's not great, but it's 5.4 fantasy points. That's something more interesting.
Yeah. Was that double or triple Pitts' targets?
Yeah, I mean, he's outscoring Pitts this year. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's going to take Pitts the rest of the season to catch up to Tyler Conklin's production the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I do agree with Steve there though about something to keep an eye on. You know, with the Wilson, he did have the least amount of targets and receptions with Wilson's first game back. So, but still, if you're getting 3 for 60. For a tight end you got off the waivers, you're happy, kind of, at this point.
Yeah, and we'll move into the guy that I brought up also on the show Thursday, and it's Daniel Bellinger. I know it's an ugly name. You don't love it, but we already said the Giants have nobody to pass to outside of Barkley. So Daniel Bellinger is one of the names. He's a tight end, which they love the tight end there. Granted, they have a very tough matchup, allegedly, this week in the Packers, who are currently the second best defense against tight end. Yeah, I completely understand that. But week 2, 8.6 fantasy points. Granted, he had a touchdown. Week 3, though, 8 fantasy points without a touchdown. This past week, 5.3. All decent numbers. And now they don't have Kenny Golladay. It's again, you're looking based on the numbers, he has to see more targets. It has to happen.
And he's a rookie, so just like we treat rookie receivers, we kind of give him that leeway of, okay, give you a few weeks to learn the system. He's a rookie tight end, and most of the time rookie tight ends don't do too much, but who knows? In week 6, 7, he could that light goes on and he becomes a good fantasy option for a team like we've been talking about that just needs someone to catch the ball besides Barkley.
Yeah, speaking of teams that really need somebody to catch the ball, I think this is one of the reasons you have a pick for me for tight end. I would love to hear your explanation on it.
Yeah, I put Hunter Henry, and just the big reason was I think Johnny Smith went down with an injury, which we don't know what the extent of how serious that injury is, but Hunter Henry last year, I know it was with Mac Jones, and who knows when he's coming back, but he was a top 10 tight end last year. And every year that he's kind of healthy, you see, with the Chargers or with the Patriots, he's right around that 500-600 yards. He can catch some touchdowns. So it's just someone, again, it's kind of touchdown dependent, but I think with Johnny Smith being out, maybe you can see an uptick in receptions. I'm not happy about it if you have to start Henry, but it's just one of those, it's the tight end, and you just kind of close your eyes when you're hitting that submit lineup and you see Hunter Henry in there,
Yeah.
And they play the Lions this week.
Yeah. We're both Chargers fans, so we've seen Henry be very good.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not quite sure what to expect with him here, and it's ugly.
But they are playing the Lions, and we just talked about the Lions and these shootouts and everything, so who knows? I don't know how the Lions are against tight ends exactly this year so far, but
they haven't been great. They're the lower half. I'm fairly certain on it, but again, they're allowing everybody to score. So it's a great, as good of a dart throw as you can have at this point. But we'll move into the defenses because everybody cares about defenses. Not really, but hey, another potential shirt. Abolish the defense. I don't know, or go to IDP. IDP. If you're looking for IDP, you need to join our Discord. This way. How the heck do I get to that point? Yeah, you got it. I'm like, tell him to do it. But he's got it. You join the Discord. We have a bunch of IDP guys that will gladly help you because I'm completely clueless on it. I always ask them for help, and they're always on the ball to help me. But if you're looking at defenses, it was ugly this week. But they showed up. Minnesota Vikings, 21.5% rostered, go up against the Bears, which are, I don't know if you guys been watching. You kind of just, it's a bird box situation where you just are not really looking, but it's an ugly offense. You don't want to watch it. And I mean, the Vikings have been good. They put up 11 points against the Packers, 2 points against the Eagles. Granted, like we said, Lions are going off offensively. -1 fantasy points there. But this past week against the Saints, 6 fantasy points. You could do worse, and they're widely available.
Yeah, and defenses are just so matchup based. It's even the not so great defenses. If they're playing a bad offense, they're probably going to put up some points. So I agree with that one.
Yeah, and if Fields is actually throwing, I mean, you might actually have a shot at a pick here, but
yeah, right.
Those kind of things help. This is the most times he's thrown, and he went over 20 passing attempts this week, which is super impressive. Sorry, that is very much sarcastic. We appreciate Fields, but it's just, man, that offense is not something you want to look at.
Yeah.
We'll go into another one that I really enjoy, and the Tennessee Titans, widely available. The reason I like them is the fact that you saw what they did against the Colts, which they stopped Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if that was all injury, but man, 20 carries, 47 yards, that's rough.
Yeah.
So they go against the Commanders this week, and the past 4 weeks. Week 1 versus Giants, 8 fantasy points. Week 2 versus Bills, -5. Not surprising there because that's a really good offense as well. Yeah. Week 3 versus Raiders, 2 fantasy points, not great. But again, week 4, this past week versus the Colts, 9 fantasy points. That's a pretty solid option for you. I mean, just throwing it out there. Are there any differences you're interested in, Mike?
Yeah, I really like Jacksonville.
They're looking good.
They are looking good. They could just be, let alone they have a good matchup, they could just be a good defense overall. I think they're 4th overall this year so far. I think they had one huge game against the Colts where they shut them out. But I just think what I look for when I try to get defenses is, can I start them multiple weeks? And I look at Jacksonville's schedule, and they get Houston, and then they get the Colts, who they shut out, and then they get the Giants. That's their next 3 games. So you can kind of pick them up and not worry about defense for 3 weeks. And again, they could possibly be a really good defense. They got 21 points against the Colts, and then they got 9 points against the Eagles, which is impressive. So, I think Jacksonville's my favorite defense to pick up on the waivers if you need one.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't give you a good reason not to. They've looked good. It's been impressive for them, and so again, thank you so much, Mike, for coming on.
I appreciate it.
Guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Outside of that, 8 different quarterbacks have had 350 plus passing yards in a single game this season. The Bears have 309 passing yards through 4 games.
Jeez.
Yikes. Steve dropping bombs. That's brutal. But man, I mean, and Mooney has, I think he had almost 100 yards last week. So
a third.
He has a third of it in one game.
Yeah.
I terrifying.
The Mooney people were saying like, oh, he had a 40% target share. It's like, they threw 15 times or something,
Yeah, it's completely great. They just need to, be throwing 30 plus times, and he might be somebody that you're more interested in.
Yeah.
It's just getting to that point. It's brutal to watch the Bears play. But yeah, sorry, lost track. Steve got me all off balance. I don't know what else to tell you. If you haven't already, join the Patreon. Patreon.com/importantnonsense. If you're looking for merch, we just dropped an awesome new shirt on the merch store. Got to check that out just for Halloween. #spooky season. Definitely want to check that out. It looks really slick. I'm going to have to order mine because I need one. It's football season. It's perfect for me. I'm too goofy not to wear it. Joe Flacco was throwing 51 times. Yes. Thank you. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why I like the Vikings so much. It seems like a perfect matchup for me. But it's just one of those things. You're looking at your potential options, and you're not going to see a high-scoring game with the Bears on the other side of the ball. I don't see them scoring 21 points, which is usually a decent threshold for a team. But I just don't see it happening. And if it is, it's going to be rushing, which doesn't really, I mean, it hurts you, but not as bad as it could. So, again, sorry, I keep promoting everything else, but we're excited to wrap this up for week 5. Hopefully we helped you guys out. Anything you want to plug, Mike? Any articles coming out or anything going on this week that you want to make sure to mention?
Yeah, got the trade article coming out tomorrow morning, mid-morning, so look out for that. Some buys, sells, holds. And then Twitter, just at Michael Burland. It's Burland. And yeah, that's about it.
Perfect. And that's all we really have time for today. I'm going to let you all go. We're going to go and watch the game because I really need the Rams to win this one because I have this parlay going that's going to pay me out. So
Nice. Go Rams.
I need the Rams to win. So
Yeah.
hope everybody enjoys their week and hopefully we helped you out. See you back on Thursday. And until then, keep up the nonsense.